microphone is beautiful. Something I don't know.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Oh, hello.
So we're going to go ahead and mute everyone and
Okay.
go ahead and get started. And Brother Joey, Lord is yours.
All righty. Well, first off, good morning, everyone, and want to say thank you for joining us for our virtual college readiness workshop. Now, of course, we would have preferred to have done this in person, but COVID and stuff. So we have to make sure we take the proper precautions and stay socially distanced, but we still want to make sure people receive the information from these two wonderful presenters that we have this morning, one being from my alma mater, the Morgan State University. Just had to throw that out there. But yes, want to welcome everybody joining us. That'll be joining in now and coming in a little bit later. So to keep things rolling, I'm going to do a word of prayer, and then we will roll off into the history of the scholarship committee. So please bow your heads. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for waking us up this morning, Lord Heavenly Father Jesus. We pray, Lord Heavenly Father, that the information that is received this morning will be beneficial to everybody, Lord Heavenly Father. We thank everyone for joining us this morning, Lord Jesus. Please keep everyone safe as we finish off the rest of this 2020, and prayerfully 2021 will be a much better year, Lord Heavenly Father Jesus. In your name's sake we pray, amen.
Okay, the history, can you hear me? The history of the scholarship committee. The Henry McNeil Turner Scholarship Ministry began in 1984 when Mrs. Cleo White, a faithful member of Turner Memorial AME Church, embodied a vision to provide financial support for high school students of her church. The two key factors that initiated this creation was the love for children and the concern for their future. When she approached the then pastor, Reverend Douglas, with the idea, he enthusiastically embraced it and pledged his support. It was then the scholarship committee was birthed with an initial $10,000 from Mrs. White, along with founding members, Mrs. Alice Butler and Mr. Howard Grimmett. Other interested members were added later. Pastor Douglas suggested the ministry be named in honor of Henry McNeil Turner, the 12th bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Bishop Turner was a visionary of great intellectual and spiritual power, as well as a deep seeker of knowledge and a lover of learning. God has blessed us over the years with a congregation that believes in the importance of serving Him and the importance of education in the lives of our youth. With the continued generosity of our congregation and committee-sponsored fundraisers, we have awarded financial scholarships to 152 young scholars. Returning college students may also apply for a book stipend for the remaining years in college. In 2016, the committee broadened the application process to include interested students in the local high schools for a community scholarship. We plan to continue this legacy of encouraging our young people to seek ye the Lord first, as well as to seek an education and training beyond high school that will prepare them for the future, and to serve God through family, church, community, and the great society. To God be the glory for these 36 years of service to Him through our youth. May we continue in the spirit of encouraging and financially supporting our youth as God has always provided our needs.
Thank you very much, Sister Ivy. At this point, we will go ahead and move into our financial aid portion with the Miss Wynette Haney, who is a financial aid counselor at the Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. We ask that if you have any questions, if you post them to the chat session, when we get to the Q&A session, we will go ahead read those questions out for Ms. Haney to answer. Ms. Haney, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to provide an overview of financial aid programs. It's not specific to Morgan State University, but of course, you know, if it's in your soul to join us at Morgan, we are more than welcome to have you. So the first thing I want to start off with is what percentage of undergraduate students receive some type of financial aid? A, 40%, B, 55%, C, 85%, or D, 95%. You know, it's just a quick, you know, what do you think? Or how many students attending school do you think receive some sort of financial aid? So C, 85%. So 85% of students who attend any college or university use some sort of financial aid funding. So paying for college. So again, paying for college is a very important part of the college experience. Sometimes it's the most stressful part. So the financial aid office is here to help you relieve some of that stress. Another question. So collectively, students have left roughly how much financial aid on the table? How much aid on the table who didn't fill out the proper financial aid documents in a timely manner? You have A, $2 billion, B, $1 million, C, $5 million, or D, $1 billion. A, $2 billion of money is left on the table because sometimes students and or parents fail to fill out that proper financial aid documentation. So again, I'm going to try to inform you so you know you get all of the money that you are eligible to receive. There are multiple ways to pay for college. I will go through a few of those sources. You have your federal aid, your state aid, your institutional aid, your scholarships, you have private sources, you have loans, payment plans, and work-study programs. So where do you start with financial aid? You start with the FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid. Keyword meaning free. There are websites out there that will charge you for completing a FAFSA. So if you come across a website that says the fee for filling out your FAFSA is $25, $50, any amount, please leave that website immediately. Again, it's the free application for federal student aid. So no one should be charging you for anything that you can fill out for free. So just keep that in mind. So filling out the FAFSA each year is one of the most important steps a student and family takes to pay for college. So how do you complete the FAFSA? The FAFSA is online at studentaid.gov. That is the only website, studentaid.gov. The FAFSA opens every year on October 1st. So for those who are seniors, the FAFSA has opened for you on October 1st. And the deadline, or the Maryland State deadline, will always be March 1st. So October 1st and March 1st, those are the important dates that you want to keep in mind. Although March 1st is the Maryland State deadline, that does not mean you cannot submit your FAFSA after March 1st. March 1st is the Maryland State deadline for Maryland residents to be eligible for Maryland State aid. And I'll get into that shortly in a few slides. When you log into your FAFSA, you can add up to 10 schools on your one FAFSA application. So that just means that your one application will be sent to how many ever schools that you put on your FAFSA. If you have more than 10 schools, you just simply send your FAFSA initially, and then you just go back in, take a school off, put another one on, and again, that school will receive that one FAFSA application. Another thing to keep in mind is award decisions are going to be based on a prior year financial aid, federal tax information. So for those students who will be graduating in May of 2021, when you fill out your FAFSA, it will ask you for yours and your parents' 2019 tax information. So don't worry when you see that. No, it's not a mistake. That is the information that they are looking for. To make the FAFSA process a little bit easier, they have now created a FAFSA app, which you can download to your phone. It is My Student Aid. You and your parent can download this app to your phone, so you can do your FAFSA literally anywhere. The Department of Education has realized that people are attached to their phones, so they have decided to present the FAFSA in a mobile form. So again, no matter where you are, you can complete your FAFSA. Once you complete your FAFSA, there is a process called verification. This process is not for everybody. It is a random selection process just to confirm that the information that was put on your FAFSA was correct. So it doesn't mean that once you're selected for verification that you did anything wrong. It's literally just a random tag your it type of thing. So again, some families are chosen at random. Some families will be chosen by the school itself. So if you are selected for verification process, that just means that you will have to provide additional documentation that has to be submitted to the financial aid office. And the financial aid office will let you know what that documentation is. The one thing that I can say about the verification process is it can be timely. So my suggestion is don't submit anything to the financial aid office until you are asked for it. A lot of times we get, students and parents who are excited about, college life and they want to get all the money that they can get. So they just start submitting documentations that we didn't ask for. And once you submit that documentation to the financial aid office, any financial aid office, they are required to now look at it because you gave it to us. You put it in our hands. So now we have to look at it. And sometimes that may or may not open a can of worms that, some people just don't want open. So again, don't submit anything as far as verification documents unless it's asked for. So when you fill out your FAFSA, you are offered some loan options. So despite popular belief, loans are considered financial aid. It's not the free money that everybody wants, but it is financial aid nonetheless. So the decision to take out loans for any school is an important one. So you want to make sure that you weigh all of your options when it comes to loans for school. So there are 3 types of loans. So when you fill out the FAFSA, you have your federal direct student loan programs. You have your federal direct parent loan for undergraduate students or your PLUS loan. And then of course you have your private and alternative loans through private lenders or banks like Sallie Mae, PNC, Discover. Those particular loan options should be used as a last resort. Those private loans, the interest rate on those particular loans are a lot higher than the ones of government loans. So if you can stay away from those private loans, we suggest that you do. You always want to start with your government loan funding. So with the Federal Direct Student Loan Program, you'll have 2 types of loans. You'll have your federal subsidized loan and your federal unsubsidized loan. So the difference between the two is the subsidized loan is a need-based loans, and the interest on that particular loan is paid for by the government while the student is still enrolled. The unsubsidized loan is not need-based, and the interest on that loan does accrue while the student is in school. Now, both of these loans do not have to be paid back until the student is finished with their college career. So 6 months after their last date of attendance or after graduation, then students will start to receive notifications that they'll have to start paying back their loans. So students must be enrolled for a minimum of 6 credits. That's half-time, that's what we consider half-time in order to be eligible for these loans. So with the federal student loan programs, for dependent students, the maximum amount of incoming freshmen can receive is $5,500. Now that $5,500, well, all of these amounts would be split in half, half for each semester. So the maximum amount for freshmen is $5,500, sophomores, $6,500, juniors and seniors, $7,500. For independent students who come in as a freshman, the maximum amount is $9,500, sophomores, $10,500, and juniors and seniors, $12,500. Now, the difference between if you're dependent or independent all depends on the answers that you provide on your FAFSA. I tell a lot of students the easiest way to know if you're dependent or independent is your age. The first question that you'll be asked is, were you born before January 1st, 1999? If you answer no to that question, you're automatically a dependent student. So it doesn't matter. So I know, parents and students, you turn 18 and you're like, yes, I'm doing this on my own. I'm paying this bill, I'm working my own job. Yes, in our eyes, you are being independent and we're proud of you for that. But in the government's eyes, they're like, no. If you are under the age of 24, you will still be considered a dependent student and you will have to provide your parents' information on your FAFSA. So because the government does not want to leave the parents out, the parents have a loan specifically for them. That is the Federal Direct Parent Loan for undergraduate students, or our PLUS loan. So this particular loan is applied for by the parent on the student's behalf. This loan is not need-based. It's available to all parents or the legal guardians of dependent students. The parent is responsible for the loan payment, and it's based on the parent's credit. Now, if a parent applies for this loan and it is denied for whatever reason, it doesn't matter why, the government will then offer the student an additional unsubsidized loan for up to $5,000. So it could be $4,000 or $5,000 depending on the student's classification. And for those parents who are approved, the repayment on that loan can be deferred for 1 semester or more, depending on the lender. So other federal aid funding that can be provided is the federal Pell Grant. So for this year, the maximum amount of the federal Pell Grant is $63.95. Again, this is funding that does not have to be paid back. The amount is based on your COA or your cost of attendance, your EFC, which is your estimated family contribution, and your enrollment status. So if you're enrolled full-time, half-time, like that. The SEOG grant, which is the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, that amount can range from $400 to $1,500, and it is awarded to Pell eligible students on a first come, first served basis. And then you have your federal work study programs. It is need-based and it's intended to supplement costs associated with attending college. And students must maintain a 2.0 GPA to be considered. And work study is also on a first come, first served basis. For those who are Maryland residents, we have what's called the Maryland Higher Education Commission, or MHEC. This office is for the state of Maryland for students who live in Maryland who plan on attending Maryland state schools. So if you have if you live in Maryland and once you complete your FAFSA, the Maryland Higher Education Commission will pick up your FAFSA and then see if you are eligible for any free state funding. So they have need-based grants and scholarships, legislative, merit-based, and career-based grants and scholarships, and also unique scholarships and grants, like for those who were in the foster care system or those who may be unaccompanied homeless youth. So if you receive an email notification from the Maryland Higher Education Commission, please do not ignore it. It is not a scam, it is a real thing. You would be surprised at how many students that I've come across that thought that, this wasn't real, or they didn't know what it was about. So they ignored the emails and they ended up missing out on thousands of dollars because they didn't respond to the email. So that $2 billion that's left on the table that we talked about earlier, this is part of that. I understand if you're hesitant about emails that you receive, but if you get an email that you're not, or a letter that you're not sure about, you can always contact your financial aid office to make sure that what you're receiving is valid. Institutional aid is just that. It's funding that comes from the institution itself. A lot of institutions, they have aid available through different departments on their campus. So sometimes you just have to ask that department if they have funding available. So, for example, if your test scores or GPA are, through the roof and awesome, you may want to talk to that school's honors department. If you play a sport, basketball, football, tennis, volleyball, you would want to talk to the athletic department about funding. And then you have, funding based on your major. If you're in engineering, if you're a business major, you want to talk to those departments to see if they have funding specifically for students within that major. But then of course, you can always talk to your financial aid department. Again, they are there to help, assist you with funding for school. And then you have your private aid. There are thousands of scholarships that exist to help students pay for college. You can check with companies and organizations. I know Coca-Cola, Xerox, they are always have scholarships available. Fraternities and sororities, again, have grants and scholarships available. Interest group, churches, and even your parents' employers, they all may have some type of financial aid funding that can be provided to you for school. You also want to check out the Alumni Association for the school that you want to attend. A lot of alumni associations for schools are located in different states, different cities. So if you want to go to a school in North Carolina, but you live in Maryland, check and see if there is an alumni chapter for that school in Maryland. And what happens is those chapters usually provide, some type of scholarship for students who attend, who want to attend that school. So again, just contact the school's alumni association, and they can possibly provide you with a list of those chapters, and you can, link with those chapters to see if they have any scholarships available. Colleges and universities understand that paying for college can be a challenge. So most institutions have implemented payment plan options. So you want to make sure that you contact the university's bursar or student accounts office to see if they have payment plans available. Or you can possibly find that information on the school's website. Earlier, I mentioned the cost of attendance or the budget. A lot of award letters that are sent to students may have this information on the award letter. Now, when you see it, I know it says cost of attendance, but that does not mean this is what you're being charged for attending that institution. The cost of attending is just an estimate to establish a student's financial need. Things like, the build expenses, so your tuition and fees, your room and board, books and supplies, all of these things help make your cost of attendance. So it's just to say, it may cost this particular student X amount of dollars to attend this school for the year. So again, if you see cost of attendance, don't worry. This just, again, lets, the school know how to establish a student's financial need. So just as easy as it is to get financial aid, it can also be taken away. So all institutions have what's called a satisfactory academic progress, or SAP. So what this does, it measures the standard that you're completing your coursework. So SAP usually consists of two things: your GPA, your overall GPA, which must be a 2.0, and your completion rate. The completion rate is 67%. So as long as you maintain over a 2.0 GPA and complete at least 67% of the classes that you have attempted, then you'll be fine. We're not going to worry about this because I know, our students are, academic scholars, so we're not going to worry about this. But I do know that, some students struggle, so just keep that in mind. There is a appeal process for those who do fall into this category, but you would check with your specific school on what that process is. So a few tips that I have for those who are making their way to college: do your research on the schools you're thinking about attending. Don't just pick a school because your best friend is going. Don't just pick a school because, oh, you saw them on TV and, they're the life of the party. Definitely, do your research on these schools. Start looking for your outside grants and scholarships early. The earlier, the better. For those who are currently seniors in high school, this is the time. Now is the time to start looking for those outside grants and scholarships. Work on your financial aid together with your parent. As independent as our students are, we get a lot of parents who contact the financial aid office who don't know anything because their student filled out all the financial aid forms, and then vice versa. We get students who come to the office and don't know what's going on because their parent filled out all the financial aid forms. So work on it together, and then that way everybody can be on the same page. Ask questions. Ask all the questions. There's no stupid question when you're going through the college process. That's what we're here for. We're here to answer those questions that you may have. And then shop around. I used to be a firm believer in go where the money goes. If this school is offering you $10,000 and another school is offering you $5,000, go with the $10,000. But then you have to look at that bottom line. You have to look at that price tag. Yes, this school is giving you $10,000, but it costs $40,000 a year. So how are you going to come up with that additional $30,000? But on the other side, the school that gives you $5,000, your cost there may be $10,000. So now you only have to come up with $5,000 as opposed to 30. So, shop around. I know the money looks good when it's offered to you, but again, you have to look at that bottom line. So that is the end of my presentation. Again, thank you for having me. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to address them.
I don't see any questions in the chat. If anyone has a question, please feel free to ask.
I do have a question.
Okay.
So has anything financially changed now that COVID has actually came into the presence of everyone's life now in the schools? I know, they've been trying to do stuff at the universities, but has anything kind of adjusted here and there financially?
So schools have been taking their own kind of path in that regard. So I know some schools have reduced their fees by a certain percentage. Some schools, for students who were supposed to be on campus, they have waived all of those charges because they can't be on campus. Um, a lot of schools are doing something different. I haven't come across any school that has reduced their tuition, but they have been reducing their fees, since the fees usually cover, the students using campus facilities. And because they aren't doing that, those fees have been reduced.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question as well. You had mentioned MHEC earlier and how they might reach out to a student and don't ignore it, but how would you then as the student be on their radar? Like, how do they receive your information to want to offer you something in the first place?
So when they use your address. So when a student fills out the FAFSA, if they put in a Maryland address, they'll pick up that student, and then they'll use the information from their FAFSA to reach out to the student. So the email address that they put on their FAFSA, that's what they'll use to contact the student. And it's literally just because they put they have a Maryland address. Now, just because you receive notification from them does not mean that you're automatically getting money from them. They're just letting you know that you may be eligible, and then they'll go through their process to see what it is that you may be eligible for.
If the student overlooks that email that comes through, can like the parents or the students reach out themselves to MHEC somehow too?
They can. They do have a website. MHEC does have a website, www.mhec.md.us. And then they do have, a lot of information as far as the college process, what grants and scholarship, like the specific grants and scholarships that they do offer. They have all that information on their website. So if the student doesn't receive anything, but you think that they may be eligible, yes, you can always reach out to them.
Okay. One other quick question for you. So for that parent loan, if the parent gets denied, you had mentioned that the student is then eligible for like a $4,000 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Who authorizes or signs off on that? Is it the student that then formally accepts it, or does the parent accept it on behalf of the student?
Yes, so once it's denied and the government offers the student that additional funding, then it does become the responsibility of the student. The parent will no longer be, responsible for that particular loan because they were denied.
Okay, thank you.
I have
You're welcome.
a question. A minute. True. Sorry, guys.
Wait, you have to unmute.
Yeah, you're muted.
You're muted. Got to unmute.
Okay. I think you've given some wonderful information. My question is this available to counselors in high schools to give to students? In other words, before they get, what information is available to counselors for the students to obtain?
Unfortunately, unless the counselor from that school reaches out, we don't know that they need this information. So usually what happens is if a school has maybe like a FAFSA night or something like that, and then they reach out for, for presenters to come, they usually don't have this type of information. Normally what counselors get is they get the information from the admission side. They get the how to apply to the school, what, documentation they need to apply. They rarely get the financial aid information. So again, unfortunately, unless somebody from the school reaches out to the department specifically, they won't have this information.
Okay, thank you.
So it's almost like basically someone needs to inform the schools like, hey, on a yearly basis, just reach out to top 5, top 10, just any 10 particular schools and see what information they have. Because I know the information that you're providing us right now should be relatively the same with other schools, but might have some other slight differences. So,
okay. Right, exactly. And you know, a lot of schools, like if you contact them, they can send you, you know, if they can't physically be there, then they can possibly send, you know, some type of brochure or something that they have. But yeah, unless someone, you know, sends that email or knocks on the door, you know, we don't know.
Got you. Thank you.
I have a quick question. How does this pertain to a student who may want to attend a trade school? You know, some students may not want to attend a 4-year institution or a 2-year institution and may want to attend a trade school. What type of financial aid is available in that aspect? So
the FAFSA is actually still available for those students who do want to attend trade school. When I look at the school codes for FAFSA, there are a lot of school codes for those who want to attend beauty school, you know, things like that. So all those, you know, there are trade schools listed on the FAFSA. Now, when it comes to grants and scholarships, that may be a little trickier because a lot of grants and scholarships are geared towards 2-year or 4-year institutions. So the grants and scholarships may be a little trickier, but it is possible to find funding, you know, grant funding for specifically for trade schools. But as far as the FAFSA is concerned, that's the same. That'll be the same across the board.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, so no other questions. So I just wanted to, first of all, thank you, Ms. Haney, for joining us and participating in our event. I did want to highlight some things for students who may be looking for scholarships. You have available to you the United Negro College Fund website. They offer scholarships for students there. And you can go to the UNCF website and just click on scholarships, and there are scholarships available to you. Also, a scholarship was passed on to our scholarship ministry for the USDA. The USDA is offering a scholarship right now that students are able to apply to. And I will share that information in the chat, the website that you can go to get that. And then another one, I don't know if we have any DC students on right now, but a fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, a DC chapter, reached out to me in regards to a scholarship that they will be offering. And I will share their website in here as well. And it is available for DC public school and charter school students who have a desire to attend college. And so I will put that email, website address in the chat for you as well if you are interested in that. So once again, I want to thank you again, Ms. Haney, for joining us. Your presentation was awesome. We appreciate all the information that you've shared with us. And just thank you for getting up and joining us this morning.
Oh, it's no problem at all. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you, and you're welcome. So next we will move into our presenter, Miss Adebisi. Forgive me if I say the last name wrong. Adebowale. Okay, great. All right. So she is the CEO and founder of Upliftology. She is a graduate of Eleanor Roosevelt High School. My son will be happy to know that. And so Miss Adebowale, I am turning controls over to you, and you are now able to share your presentation. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You said my name so beautifully. I was like, ooh, You had it. No, you had it right on. So thank you so much for having me. I'm greatly appreciative. I'm hoping everyone can hear me clearly. Yes, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to present my screen and I'm hoping that you'll be able to see that as well. And just let me know once you're able to see that. Can everyone see? Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love when technology works. So I'm gonna take my face off so that you can see the screen and focus on this. So I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so happy to be following is it Dr. Haney, Mrs. Haney? Mrs. Haney presentation, because talking about scholarship seems to be a very taboo subject till this day. And it blows my mind how much broken systems we have in the educational system as regards to scholarship. So I'm going to be presenting from a more personal standpoint than a university standpoint, because I was fortunate enough to be a recipient of scholarships myself and going to the most expensive university in the nation at the time when I was in college. So you're in the right place if you are preparing as a student to apply to college within the next year or 3 years, or if you're a parent who has a child who will be doing so. If you're curious to present yourself as the ultimate package to schools as you're applying, and if you want to know where to earn cash for college, my goal for today is to share with you the elements of the application, the college application, help you realize it does not have to be as daunting as some people make it seem it is, even though it's a very much so long, tedious process. Typically, you're looking at applying to schools and scholarships over a span of at least 4 months because of, you have many things that you're juggling. You have to take in consideration students who are still in school, who have to write the essays, who have to search the schools and the scholarships that they want to apply to. So you're looking at between 3 to 4 months just to get everything done. And then you start waiting for the schools to get back to you. And lastly, my goal is to inform you how your child could attend college and graduate school debt-free. Now, we'll talk about different schools and scholarship programs and what they want to know about you, how to expedite the college application process, and the importance of the FAFSA, because I know that a lot of students still to this day in their senior year of high school don't even know what the FAFSA is. Now, if you stay until the end of the presentation, we have about roughly 30 minutes, I will say, you'll be able to join me in a live Q&A and I'll take your questions from there. Now, the reason why I am able to speak on this is because I am an international speaker, coach, and social entrepreneur, and the world's only upliftologist. As Mr. Derek said, that I'm the founder of Upliftology, where we help college-bound students prepare for the college application process to graduate school debt-free. I am a 2-time Bill Gates Millennium Scholar, and I was able and fortunate enough to attend the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. and graduate school debt-free from both my undergraduate and my master's program. I help Gen Zers and younger millennials find their voice and their purpose to maximize their lives of their dreams and make it reality. And I do this through Upliftology, the company that I mentioned earlier. Now, it all began for me at Eleanor Roosevelt High School in Greenbelt, Maryland, where I was fortunate enough to be my class president for 3 years, from my sophomore through senior years of high school. And here I am with my high school advisors, my class advisors at my graduation day, thanking them and giving them the gratitude that all of us as class officers had for being with them for 3 years and being able to lead my classmates. But also what they don't realize and what I didn't realize for a long time was that being in that position was a catalyst for me to be able to get the scholarship that I did earn, because that was my extracurricular activity. That was the icing on the cake for me. That's where I put my time outside of my academics, was to help lead my classmates. My parents are Nigerians and I'm Nigerian American, and that's why I have that very African name. And I was born to them here in Washington, D.C., and fortunate enough to have such hardworking parents who provided everything for me. But the reality of it is that I still needed support to go to college. And even though my parents were very hardworking, they wouldn't have ever been able to afford GW. Here I am when I was a freshman at George Washington, with my classmates and roommates, both on the left and right. Some of them were my roommates my freshman year, and then the other ones have become my roommates my sophomore through senior years, having a great time at the basketball game, celebrating a friend's birthday. During my time at school, I was fortunate enough to study abroad on 3 different occasions. First, here in Paris as a junior, studying with the business school for a semester, my fall semester. And then here again, going into my senior year, studying abroad in Sweden and Denmark, on a sustainability marketing course. And then lastly, in my second year of my master's here in Dubai, where we did another marketing course on tourism and the expansion of the tourism sector in the Middle East. This is me on my last graduation, my second graduation from the George Washington University, with my master's in information systems technology. And I'm showing you guys this picture, and I gave you that history because I wanted to show you that it took me a long time to get all those degrees. However, on this day, I was graduating the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. for the second time, completely debt-free, without a penny to be owed to the school, to my name. And that was very huge for me because I had a very, very, very expensive education. And I was able to do that with scholarships and grants from the Gates Millennium Scholarship, as well as alumni grants from the George Washington University, the Pell Grant, which comes from the FAFSA, and other scholarships and grants that I was afforded throughout my duration at the school. GW is an expensive university, extremely expensive. And I know I'm talking fast, but I want you guys to please make sure you're following with me. If I'm going too fast, please let me know in the chat, and feel free to drop your questions. I will be certain to ask and to answer them at the end of the session. Now, I wanted to point out how much GW cost when I was there. It was roughly $57,000 a year for my undergraduate degree, and then additional $30,000 for my 2 years and in my master's program. I have over a $285,000 education in which I graduated with completely free. Completely free. You guys, I would not have been able to do it without scholarships. I'm telling you right now, at all. My father was a cab driver. My mother worked for the Embassy of Nigeria. There's no way I would have been able to do it. The college application process does not start when a student gets into their senior year of high school. It starts as soon as the child and their parents come to the decision that you will further your education beyond secondary school. That means that if you know that you are a parent of a 9th grader, a 10th grader, even a 2nd grader, and you know that your desire is for them to go to college, that college application process starts now. And one thing that unfortunately we are plagued with in the African-American community is the finances. And we don't start thinking about things until we get into those moments. And I'm telling you right now, as a parent, as a grandparent, you can start saving $1 a day, $1 a month, $1 a quarter for your child, and that will add up. I've heard remarkable testimonies of parents who started saving little by little. And of course, as your income increases, you increase the amount that you save for your child, but you start now. You start as soon as someone knows they want to attend college. And one of the most important process steps is selecting a subject in which you want to study in. A lot of people think that it's okay to go to school undecided. And while that's permissible to a certain extent, it makes it easier to apply to schools when you know what you want to study. It dictates the schools you apply to. Why? Because not all colleges are created equal. Not all colleges have the same offerings. And if you know what you're looking to go to school for, you want to go to schools that will teach you that subject very well. In the same regards, if students know that they don't want to go to college, trade schools are another option because you know that you can get that trade, that skill from a certain type of school. The application process is expensive and it adds up when you're applying to schools that you should not be at, right? It adds up when you are going to a place where you know that you should not be at. Remember, the cost of applying to school and attending school all are encompassing into the college application process. You need to know how you will, or at least how you want to pay for college. So if a parent is not able to afford college out of pocket and scholarships are the angle that you want to go in, then you need to know strategically, how are we going to approach this? Having that in the back of your mind will keep you on time to graduate in a timely manner. Now, I know that there are students who go to colleges, who go to four-year institutions with the mindset that, oh, I can transfer if I don't like it. But that also adds up because transferring is another application fee. You have to start the process all over again. And if you don't go to college, so say for instance, if you don't go to a community college, knowing that you're going to have to transfer to another four-year college, if you're going from a four-year college to another four-year college, that can get very messy very quickly if you're not strategic about it, because some schools don't take other schools' credits. And in some cases, if that's what you face, you may lose credit, which also means you're losing money. You're losing money if you're transferring. So you have to have in the back of your mind, what is it that I'm looking to do in my career? What is it that I'm looking to do as I'm studying? Because that will dictate what schools I apply to. That will dictate my timeline to be in higher education. Case study. Which school is currently the most expensive school in the nation? Please let me know in the chat and I'll give you a hint. It's no longer the George Washington University. That was 10 years ago, 14 years ago when I was there, but that's no longer the case. Let me know in the chat what school is the most expensive school in the nation. Or you may even, maybe you can unmute yourselves and let me know. I actually think that I may have lost the chat feature. Where'd it go? Oh, I gave you guys the answer. Mr. Derek, can you unmute yourself? Because I can't, the chat feature disappeared on me. Is anybody writing anything in the chat?
So yes, in the chat, we had USC, we have Yale, we have George Mason.
Okay, so I kind of gave you guys the answer. I don't know how but it's none of those schools. It is Harvey Mudd College in Claremont, California. Now, my question is, how much does it cost per year? I'm not going to give you guys the answer. Mr. Derek, I'm going to have you answer for me because I don't know what I did to the chat feature. Let us know in the chat. No, not just you. Let read the answer.
We have 75K, we have 80K, and we have 92 and 85.
Somebody did a Google search once they saw me put the answer up. Somebody searched it.
Okay.
Harvey Mudd College costs approximately $80,000 for one academic year. Y'all, that is so ridiculous. It is so ridiculous. Sometimes I just sit there, I'm like, is the value of the education going up from year to year? Let's be real. It probably isn't. Because I know that at my university, some of the professors who were there when they taught me are still there. And that's not to say that they don't increase in knowledge, but that's to say that regardless of what's going on, colleges are still going to put their tax, if you will, and their inflation costs on the education, even if it's not changing. Harvey Mudd costs $80,000 for one academic year. And that does not include additional fees for new and transfer students. When you're transferring, you have a transfer fee. When you're a new student, you have a enrollment fee. There are little tactics that universities add on to their processes. Freshmen are required to live on campus, so they're going to be paying that full tuition plus room and board. It was like $20,000 just for room and board. There's no longer that option of living off campus, and it only goes up from year to year. Now let's think about that. We have $80,000 a year times 4 years, because that's how long it takes to get an undergraduate degree on average. You're looking at a $320,000 education. Easy. If someone was to go to that university without scholarships. Who has that kind of money? I know I don't have that kind of money. Do you have an additional $320,000 to spend on your child's education, or your grandchild's education, on your own education? Do your parents have that money? Most people will say no. And that's why the FAFSA is so important. It is so important for students to understand the use of the free application for federal student aid. And parents, please, you also need to be involved in this. I cannot tell you enough how many students I've heard filling out the FAFSA application, guessing how much their parents earn, and it backfiring because they're putting wrong numbers in there. They're putting how much they think their parents earn. You know, kids think that their parents are rich, right? Because they provide everything for them. They think that their parents have the money to pay for their education. And it's like, okay. Earlier this year, I was working with a school up in New York, and I was speaking with a student. Luckily, his mother was sitting right beside him. And I asked him, how much do you think your mom can pay for your education? He said $25,000 per year. The mom said, which parents do you have? Who are you referring to? She's like, I can barely pay $2,500 for your education a year. That goes to show you that parents, you must be involved. You have to be involved in your children's education. You have to be transparent with them about how much you can pay, and not to put them down or not to belittle their dreams, but to tell them that they're going to have to pick up the steam on certain other areas, because financially you may not be able to afford, but it's still possible for them to attend those schools. They just have to put the work in their academics. Now, as far as the FAFSA, what's needed is the tax return information to determine your EFC. The EFC is the estimated family contribution. That's the guesstimate of how much the education system is saying that you will have to pay out of pocket for your child's education, regardless of loans, regardless of scholarships, based on your income. They're also looking at the total household income that will affect the EFC. So combined, whether it's mother and father, mother alone, father alone, how much is coming into the household to supply the needs of the household. And then also they're looking at the total number of people in the household, including grandparents, including children, and everybody. So everyone needs to go into account for the FAFSA. Now, there are 3 deadlines that are important when it comes to the FAFSA that I like to point out. There's a federal deadline, which is typically June 30th of the year prior to when you're going to school. So everyone who's enrolled into college right now, fall 2020, the deadline was June 30th, 2020 for them to apply for financial aid for this academic year. Then there's also the state deadline, which is typically in March of most years, where most of us are in Maryland. I think some of us may be in DC, but typically for Maryland state schools, the state deadline is March 30th, March 15th or March 30th for those schools, excuse me, but March timeframe. So anyone who's enrolled in school this year, they had to get the FAFSA in by March 15th. Then there is the school deadline. And I have an asterisk here because that is the most important one. Schools also have scholarships, grants, and fellowships that they can offer students. And if a student is applying to school early decision or early action, you'll want to get in your FAFSA application around the time that you're submitting your school application. Why? Because the early bird gets the worm. Schools are going to look at students who are applying to their schools based on who's coming to them first, because they're not thinking about, oh, some students are going to deliver applications on March 15th, the last day. While they know there's going to be a huge rush, if they can get the students who are the creme de la creme, the cream of the cream, the top of the top early on, guess what they're going to do? They're going to get them early on. And they're going to accept them into the program. Why? Because they want to lure them to come to their school to keep their statuses up. So when you're applying to college, you want to look at the school's deadline. Some schools typically go off of the state deadline where they're based. So typically that March timeframe. But if you're applying early decision, early action, or even if you're applying regular decision, but you're applying early, which I highly recommend, by December typically is when I tell all my scholars who come to my program, let's get all your scholarships and your college applications in by December 31st. Get your FAFSA application and the CSS profile, if the school requires it, in by the school deadline, by when you're applying to that school. FAFSA focuses on getting money towards students for your education, mainly through loans. They don't say that, but it's mainly through loans. It's mainly through loans, but you still need it in order for you to apply for scholarships, because most scholarship programs that are need-based want to know, do you really need our money? We need to see what you're getting on the FAFSA. Loans is a great way to invest into your education, but we do try to minimize loans here through the program because we love free education. I mean, who would not want a free education and not have to worry about the burden of paying back student loans? Now, how does a student earn a free education? Through scholarships, grants, and fellowships. 3 types of scholarships you can search for right now to earn cash for college are: 1, searching your desired subject of study. Now, what does that mean? When you go to Google or Yahoo, for people who still like to use Yahoo, you can put in what you want to study and put the word scholarships behind it. For instance, while I was in my undergraduate study, I was a marketing major as well as a sports management major. But taking one of them, if I wanted to look up scholarships, I could look up marketing scholarships and search for that and see what different scholarships come up for marketing. And that is why it's so important to have an idea of what you're interested in, because there's some programs nationwide that target students who have a specific interest in a specific subject. So you want to base your search on what you're interested in so that you can attract people. Every organization likes niches. So if you are a niche student, for instance, a marketing student or IT student, an engineering student, you are more likely to find scholarships based on that. Greek organizations. I heard Mr. Derek mention earlier a scholarship for Kappa Alpha Psi that's in DC. A lot of the Black Greek letter organizations, including my own, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, have scholarships that they offer students all across the nation. So you want to look in your community and see what they're offering, because they have scholarships that are useful for books, useful for a course, upwards of $2,500. That's a lot of money. And then also you want to search within your community organizations. Think the VFWs, the Daughters of the American Revolutions, the civic organizations that are in your communities. They offer scholarships, or they will at least offer to pay for something if you go and ask. A lot of those community-based organizations don't advertise that they will give you scholarships because they're worrying about their own needs. They're nonprofits. However, I myself, when I was in high school, went to my local VFW and I told them that I was looking to go to a conference, and they sponsored me at $500. And they do the same thing with students who are going to college, especially freshman students who are looking to pay for books, who are looking to pay for a course at a community college just to get the credit. If you go and ask and present yourself with your best foot forward, those organizations also give money. Now, I want you to keep in mind that a free education does not equal an expense paid education. What do I mean by that? Free education equals free tuition. Free tuition. As I showed you earlier with the case study of Harvey Mudd, tuition at that university costs upwards of $60,000, right? But I told you that the school costs $80,000 a year. You have to keep in mind that room and board is also an expense. And if a school is offering you free education, you have to look in between the lines. That may not include room and board. Now, we are in a different time and season because of COVID, where a lot of students have gone to campus and they stayed on campus, but a lot of students also have stayed at home and studied from home. Now, if you're looking to minimize the cost of your education, I highly recommend also looking at possibly staying at home, not because of COVID, but financially. If you can avoid a bill of upwards $20,000 a year and save $20,000 a year, don't take out student loans in that. I have to be very, very blunt with you. If you can avoid it, if students are staying in state, local schools, if you stay in College Park or around the College Park area, you're going to University of Maryland College Park. If you do not have a scholarship to cover it, if you do not have a complete expense paid education or do not get that money from the school, look at how you can minimize your expenses. And it starts with room and board. It is extremely expensive. It is 1/4 of the cost, for instance, at the most expensive university in the nation. If you can save 25% off the bat, if you do not get a scholarship, this is again, if you do not get a full scholarship, all expense paid scholarship, please look at where you can minimize and eliminate your expenses. And that starts with room and board. I know staying on campus is a child's freedom, but also think about it, it comes with debt in some way or some form. Colleges cost are more than simply tuition, as which we just went over. But the key to success is making sure that you are staying present and on time and looking at what you're looking to do with your education. There's no time like the present to get yourself ready. And you also want to have a compelling brand story. Now, what is a brand story? A brand story is pretty much the story of you. Who are you? Who you want to be, who you want to become. It's telling the story of who at ABC is, who Mr. Derrick is, who Mrs. Johnson is. You want to make sure that you're telling that story and have good grades. When I was in high school, I told you the story of my background and being class president for a reason. That was my brand story, right? I was a part of the STEP team. I was a part of I was my class president. And I was doing all these different things. I was a part of another organization, but it got to a point where I wanted to focus on being class president so I could do a good job. I could have a quality presidency because I knew that I wanted to be my senior year class president. And I wanted to work hard at it. It was important for me to have that story because I wanted to have a dedicated space where I was involved and my hand and my imprint was made. And my classmates felt it to the point that they elected me 2 more times after I won. What I didn't tell you is that my freshman year, I ran and I lost. But that was a part of my brand story and resiliency. One of the college essay questions that I got, and I remember to this day, was name a situation where you overcame defeat or failure, and how did you progress forward? And guess what I wrote about? Running for class president and then winning my subsequent 3 years. It worked so well that I got a scholarship to college. You want to think about who you are and who you want to become and what impact you're having as a student. Yes, even as young as 16 and 17 right now, you have a brand story, but you also need to have good grades. I know everyone is not going to have a 4.0. Not everyone's going to have a 3.5, but you need to study hard because essentially the purpose of going to college is to do academically well, to let the schools know that you're going to bring a good reputation to them and keep them going from where they're building themselves. And also SATs. Now, I kept this in here because we may come back to it. However, schools are now waiving the SATs considering what's going on with COVID. Now, I can't brag about this enough for you guys. This is awesome. So if schools are waiving the SATs for you, by all means, apply to those schools, especially if it's not needed. But you will still need to do well academically, and you'll still need to have a compelling brand story. Get involved. I can't tell you enough about extracurricular activities. Schools want students who stand out. And yes, everybody's starting to look the same. Everybody has, the same access to everything that we all have online, but you still have your story that makes you uniquely you. It's how you position yourself. It's how you market yourself. It's how you tell your stories, because colleges want well-rounded students. They know that once you get to college campuses, you're going to get distracted. They know that you're going to have so many things on your plate. They know that you're going to want to be everywhere and try to figure out yourself. But you want to show them that, hey, I did this in high school. I had XYZ going on, extracurricular activities, but I still earned good grades. And I was still present in my family. I was still volunteering in my community. Why aren't more students attending college for free? They don't know about scholarships. They don't have the proper resources. They're not researching early enough how much colleges actually cost. Some students don't even know how much their state schools cost. And they are rising every year. And what you need to keep in mind is, regardless if you have a scholarship or not, that college, that university is going to get their money regardless, because you cannot attend any college or university without paying them. Even if a student goes and defaults on one semester, guess what? They won't allow you to register for the next semester without paying that balance off, right? They don't care if it's a loan. They don't care if it's a scholarship. They don't care if it's mom and dad coming out of pockets. So you have to be strategic about how you go about applying to school. The process doesn't need to be difficult. And you may be wondering, Adebisi, how? How is it not going to be difficult? Colleges and scholarship programs all want to know the same 5 things. So if you're not taking notes, please make sure you write this down, because they're all asking you the same thing. They're asking you, who are you? Who are you today? Who are you going to be tomorrow? Who do you want to become? What is our school going to help you do to get there? How do you stand out among your peers? What makes you uniquely you? What is your differentiating factor? Yes, even as a high school student. They're asking you, why should you be branded with the school or the scholarship program name? What makes you so good that we should give you admission into our college or university? What makes you so good that we should give you $10,000 to go and pay for your education? Let us know. They also want to know, what will you do to bring their school and their scholarship program? What will you bring to campus? How are you going to make the campus even better than what it is today? What are you going to do to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward? And lastly, the schools want to know, how will you give back to the program? Remember, I mentioned earlier that I also had an alumni scholarship. Alumni are people who have come to the schools and graduated and gave back money based on their own success. So schools want to know, like, what are you going to do so that when you do graduate, you're going to be successful and be able to give us money back, because we're going to need to keep this going and going and going. We need alumni to be successful. All programs want to know the same 5 things. They may ask it a different way, but at the base of it, at the premise, they're asking you the same 5 questions. Now, I know most of us get frustrated by it, and that's why I developed my scholarship list. I have the Upliftology scholarship list, which I promote to students so that they have a central place that they can dig in and look for scholarships that are a good fit for them. Why should you purchase it? I put enroll, but it's purchase. There are enough scholarships for many students to graduate school debt-free, or at least with much, much less debt than what they have now. Millions of students could qualify for the federal Pell Grant. Don't even apply for the FAFSA. I cannot tell you, I went to my high school, I think it was last year, it should have been spring 2019. And I was talking to my friend who now works at the school, and in comes a student, and we were all talking, we were all gisting and having a great conversation. And I asked him, because he was a senior, and I asked him if he had yet applied to the FAFSA. And he asked me, Mom and Dad, what is the FAFSA? And I was flabbergasted. So I had to explain to him what it is and what it was. And once he left the room, I just simply looked at my friend and I asked him, why doesn't he know what the FAFSA is? He's a senior. He's about to graduate in a couple of months. Why hasn't he applied to the FAFSA? That's to show you the discrepancy in the school system. Not that we don't have good educators, not that we don't have good counselors, but you also have to think about the volume. Not every student is going to be able to go to their counselor and get the advice that they need. Not everybody's going to have that advice in their home. Not everybody's going to have the access to the resources. And this is one thing that COVID and being in quarantine has taught us, that a lot of parents really haven't been involved in their children's education, or at least that they don't know what they don't know, right? There's so many resources out there. And unfortunately, everybody's trying to take care of their own life. We don't even know what's out there. And that's why I developed the scholarship list. You or your child can graduate college debt free. What's the investment for this workbook? So now it's a combined workbook. I have a workbook that is $57, but I also have the scholarship list that's $27. But by being on the call today, I have combined them that you can get them both for $47. And what some of my past clients have said, they've been involved with me in different capacities. I have courses, but I'm only offering the workbook and the scholarship list today. Olivia, as a student of the Come Up Plan, which was what it was called before, definitely said that she made a good decision in enrolling in the program. She never felt alone. She knew it was her responsibility to complete the scholarship applications on time. An essential learning lesson that she learned was that from this course, she had to meet deadlines, as it was up to her to be timely when she gets to college. The college application process is stressful, but at ABC has definitely helped me in taking some of the stress off my shoulders. The investment is worth it, believe me. Olivia came to me in 2016, I believe it was, and she just recently graduated from the University of Maryland debt-free. Coyne went to Columbia University and said that at ABC was definitely of help when it came to applying for college and scholarships, especially with the prayers. I know all of us are believers because this is a church program. And if we're not, listen, I am praying for all of you guys as well. It was great knowing I had someone to turn to when it came to questions and overall just talking about my worries and anxieties. She graduated from Columbia University debt-free in 2019. At ABC has been invaluable with my MBA application. She has been very diligent and thorough in her review of my essays. I'm grateful for all her vital contributions. Now, as I stated earlier, this is a bundle deal. I have a workbook that walks students and parents through the process of a checklist, what you need to do through the college application process, the questions that you need to answer for yourselves, and being honest, a family budget. A lot of people don't think about budgeting when it comes to college. They're just like, okay, let's just apply and go where the wind blows us. Just as the speaker before me mentioned, if a school gives you $10,000 and it costs $80,000 versus a school that gives you $10,000 that costs $30,000, which one would you go with? You got the same amount of money in scholarship, but which one would you go with? You have to be realistic. You have to have a family budget. How much are you going to come out of pocket? Because if mom and dad can put $10,000 also into your education, right, making it $20,000, would you rather have $10,000 in student loans or $60,000 in student loans because of the money that the school gave you? You have to think about those different things. So we've outlined that in the workbook. The workbook prepares the students for the college and scholarship application process, but also it gives you a written action plan. And the scholarship list gives you over 250 scholarships that you can apply to. Now you may be wondering, why would I invest into a course, into a workbook for my students? Because all the greats have coaches. All the greats have plans. Michael Jordan was the best basketball player. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but I still think that he was the best basketball player ever to date. And LeBron, my guy, is coming as a close second. But they both have coaches. They cannot do it alone. You cannot see the field that you're playing on from end to end while you're on the field. Even students get SAT tutors to make sure that their scores are up to date. Some students who are doing average in class who want to do excellent go to the experts to get better advice on how to move forward. Now, of course, the choice is yours, but I will drop the links into the chat box so that you can see if you would like to purchase either the scholarship list for $27 alone or the bundle deal for $47. But I would love for you to join me today and click the links that I will drop in the chat box. Now, does anybody have any questions? You can come off of mute or...
Yes, now is the time. If anyone has any questions, you can pose your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask that question.
I have a quick question for you. Back in the day when I was doing this process, like I would try to go to a website or look for that listing that ranked the colleges like on value or based off of a major or something like that. So do you recommend any such website or ranking lists when kids are searching?
Absolutely. You definitely want to look at the different websites to see where the rankings are. I like US News because it's just very, very familiar. usnews.com is a great program. Great website to look at to see what the schools rank so that you can apply to schools that are good for you. But also you want to look at the state schools that you have and then look at those state schools and how they compare to one another, because realistically, when you stay in state, especially for the public universities, you're automatically saving money because they're public universities. The private schools are the ones that are the more expensive universities. And the more elite they become, the more expensive they become. Now, what I do also tell my scholars is don't discredit yourself, don't count yourself out and say that I can't apply because it's too expensive. Because realistically, when you apply and you have a good, compelling story and you're doing all that you can do in high school, you may be able to earn a scholarship, right? And you don't want to say no to yourself without at least giving yourself a chance to push forward. Let the college admission officer see who you are and make a basis based on what they are looking for your academic year.
One other quick question. I have little kids right now, but when I was figuring out which high school I was going to, one factor that I did look at is, well, where do those kids, when they graduate, what schools do they end up going to? Is that a factor that you should consider, like generally for the high school, where do the kids feed into, or should you not necessarily pay attention to that?
I want to make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. You're asking based on the high school that's in your area where your children would go to. You're looking at what schools the students who graduated from that high school go to for college. Uh-oh, you went out.
Yeah, sorry. That was something that I took into consideration when selecting the high school that I went to. And I was just curious, is that something you should maybe just keep as a peripheral factor?
Yes and no, because realistically, it's up to you to understand the needs of your child one-on-one. I think that any student can go to any high school and then go to different schools that are not, familiar to that high school. So for instance, my eldest sister went to Duval High School, which was the local high school where we lived when we were growing up. And she ended up graduating from Duval and went to the Catholic University of America. I believe she was either the first or second at the time who went to Catholic University. It was not a school that was promoted. It wasn't a school that many of the students there knew about. But for her to go was like, oh my God, you're going to Catholic University. The point is that if your child is exposed to the university or the college that they're interested in, regardless of anyone else from their high school have gone there, they'll be A-okay so long as they're positioning themselves as a student who is eligible, who's qualified to apply and to attend that school. And also, if you have connections at a university, even if it's not a school that the high school promotes or the high school has students going to, talk to the admission officer, speak to the people who are at the school, who work at the college or university, if you have those connections, or even reach out to them. Because some students know that I want to go to Yale, I want to go to Howard University. Make a connection there and see what is the school truly like. And the best way to honestly do that is to get connected to students who are currently enrolled in that school to see, is this school really cracked up to be what it says to be? Am I really going to get the education that I'm looking for at this college or university? Because students are the ones who are going through it, right? They're the ones who are literally in the nitty gritty. So you want to have an idea, am I going to be able to get what I'm looking for out of this college or university? So speaking to students who are currently enrolled, it's definitely going to be a question that you want to ask. Ask.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the scholarship list and the workbook, are those individuals? So for example, can this be purchased by my financial aid office to provide this information to the campus community, or is it an individual type of workbook, if that makes sense?
You can definitely purchase it and give it to your students.
Okay.
You can definitely purchase it and give it to your students. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think I answered your question, right?
Yeah, you did. I just didn't know if it was like an individual student plan, or like I said, it can be purchased and then it could be provided to, all the students, because I really think this would be a good resource for our office. So I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't an individual thing, that's all.
Absolutely. So I usually offer it as a license based for bigger organizations. We can talk offline about it, but for sure, you can definitely access it and give it to your students.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I can get your email from Mr. Derek Lear, or you can email me. Here's my email as well.
I'll send it. No problem.
And then I also see in the chat box, thank you for your presentation. My pleasure. I pray that it was helpful for everybody. Do you offer one-on-one services? I do offer one-on-one services. So it depends on what you're looking for. Ms. Sheila Pack-Williams, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a consultation or the actual course, because I do have a course that I offer as well that's more robust.
And all that information is available on your website, correct?
Yes.
Methodology.teachable.com.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
So this is the home website.
Do we have any other questions?
Excellent presentation. Excellent.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Pastor Kearney.
Hey, thank you so much, Brother Jameson. Let me express appreciation to both of our presenters that I had opportunity to gain knowledge. And let me say that I wish that this information was available to me now some little over 25 years ago when I was trying to make my way and maneuver through the college application process and financial aid. So let me just really express appreciation to both of you for sharing the gift of knowledge to us. Let me also, in the event, Brother Derek, I may have to get off a few minutes early before you end the entire day. Let me express appreciation to you and the scholarship team for this college readiness workshop virtually. I am grateful for each and every one of you and the scholarship committee for their hard work in making sure that this ministry continues even in the midst of the quarantine and the pandemic. And to all of the seniors, rising seniors, and current freshmen that we have that are listening, I hope that you heard everything that was said. And, you know, as we say in the church lingo, and govern yourselves accordingly, because I know it's been a blessing to me, and I'm grateful to even have my daughter, who is a rising senior and a freshman at Wake Tech in Raleigh, North Carolina, on the line as she makes preparations for college. So let me just say thank you, thank you, thank you. Great information, rich information, and I'm appreciative. Thank you so much. Back to you, Derek.
Thank you, Pastor Kearney. All right, so at this point in time in our session, we're going to turn our presentation over to Brother Rob Reed for our roundtable discussion with three of Turner's own college students. Anthony Jameson, who is a student at Florida A&M University, Brother David Stowe, who is a student at Anne Arundel Community College, and Sydney Waters, who is a student at the University of Delaware.
Yay!
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I appreciate you all for participating in this. So, Brother Reed, I'm going to turn this over to you and give you co-host ability, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brother Derek. Appreciate it. Is it good afternoon, or I guess it's still morning? Good morning, everyone. Welcome again. And just to echo our pastor, Dr. Kearney, I want to thank the two wonderful presenters we've had thus far. Certainly very engaging and informative sessions. So we thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We also thought it'd be great to incorporate a student perspective in today's programming. And as Brother Derek has mentioned, we have 3 awesome students with us today, all of whom are members of our wonderful Turner Memorial congregation. As he mentioned earlier, we've got Brother David Stowe, who's a freshman at Anne Arundel County Community College, Brother D'Anthony Jameson, who's a freshman at Florida A&M University, and Sister Sydney Waters, who's a junior at the University of Delaware, I believe. So we thank you all for taking the time out of your schedules to join us today and offer your perspectives. I thought, at least at the outset, I would engage with each of you individually just to ask you a few questions about your kind of specific choices and your specific institutions. And then we could kind of transition into some more general questions that I think would be universally applicable to all of your experiences. And then we can open it up for questions that others might have. So for this first round, I thought I'd start off with Brother David Stowe, just to get a sense of your experience thus far at Anne Arundel Community College, and more specifically, what were the factors that motivated you to select a 2-year community college versus a 4-year college? So Brother David Stowe, I'll turn it over to you for that question.
Oh, all right. So hi, I'm David Stowe, as being mentioned before. And as far as going to Anne Arundel, a big factor for me personally was the cost, because school, as everyone knows, is very, very, very expensive. And I wanted to try to alleviate that pressure on my parents and myself for paying for it. And also going into college, I was a bit confused as to what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to put myself into a 4-year university and doing something that I didn't want to, or like switching things around a lot. And I decided that it would probably be best for me to just get my preliminary things out of the way at a community college first before like making a decision like that.
Awesome, thank you. And at a community college, do you feel like you've been able to develop that sense of community without kind of living on a traditional college campus?
I think it's hampered a bit by COVID, because I'm not having that same interaction with my classmates or whatever. But I definitely believe that I definitely believe you could do that, because I'm in a bit of a, like a chat thing with some of my classmates in my English class, and we talk a bit, and so I think it's definitely possible without like living on campus. But it's going to be a bit different, obviously.
Right.
So if you keep bearing that in mind, if you understand that, then you should be fine.
Awesome. Awesome. And just to kind of follow up on that, do you have help? Do you have counselors, academic advisors that help you ensure that the courses you select at the community college will ultimately be transferable to 4-year colleges?
Yes, I did. I had a counselor, I believe 2 weeks ago, talk to me about what classes I should be taking for my next semester.
Okay.
So as long as for this counselor in particular, the school provided it, but you are going to have to be a bit proactive in finding that, because at the start of the semester, I did not, because I just let things fall through the cracks. So you're going into college, be a lot more proactive with the people you talk to and the connections you make within the school system. But yeah, as long as you look out for it, then you'll definitely have a counselor to talk to help you guide you towards the right path.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, David. I'm going to switch off you, give you a little break for a minute, and transition over to D'Anthony. D'Anthony, welcome, and thank you again for joining us this morning. Want to talk to you a little bit about your motivations for selecting a historically Black college university as opposed to a predominantly white institution. Can you tell us a little bit about your motivations behind that decision?
Yes. So I decided to attend an HBCU because I wanted to be around people who look like me, and also traditionally colleges, they have smaller class sizes and are more personal. So I took that into consideration, and I chose Florida A&M University because of their School of Journalism.
Okay.
I personally think it might be the best school of journalism within HBCU and top in with other colleges as well.
Awesome, awesome. And your transition to HBCU, was the atmosphere there something you were already used to, or was it a shock to the system? Was your high school predominantly white? How did that particular transition go for you?
The transition went pretty well. My middle school was majority Black students, so I was used to that. And then when I went to Eleanor Roosevelt, the community was diverse. So that's kind of what is like at Florida A&M. There are, of course, the Black students, and then it's also diverse with people from all over.
Awesome. Awesome. I see you got a shout out from our former presenter there. So thank you for that. And just out of curiosity, particularly since it's an HBCU and we're living in a time where racial justice issues are at the forefront, what has it been like with regard to kind of the Black Lives Matter movement in relation to your institution in particular?
So there have been some protests and things going around campus where we're able to voice our opinion and talk about Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is very important, especially since we attend the HBCU. And I have participated in those activities and they were actually very good. They went very well. We had good numbers and yeah.
Cool, cool. Thank you, DeAnthony. I'll let you take a break and I'm going to change on over to Sister Sydney Waters. Thank you for joining us this morning. Great to see you as well. As I mentioned earlier, you're a junior at the University of Delaware. And so I just wanted to flesh out with you, what were the motivations behind your decision to, for example, choose a predominantly white institution versus HBCU?
Well, for me, one of the main reasons was finances. Just the school that I ended up going to, financial aid, it just worked out better for me as opposed to any of the other schools.
Uh-huh.
And then secondly, the high school that I came from was predominantly Black, and speaking to counselors and things like that, they said that, you want to, college prepares you for, the rest of your life essentially. So you really want to be able to be in an environment and be surrounded by people that look different from you, because that will end up being the people that you work with.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so how was that transition since your high school was predominantly Black? Was it a difficult transition coming into a predominantly white college?
It definitely was a culture shock. I was not used to all of the different things that have been going on. So it just, it took a little bit of getting accustomed to, and understanding, that they didn't grow up the way that I grew up. But I think that I grew better from it and I've learned a lot from it since then. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And since you're a junior, I thought I'd probe just a couple quick additional questions with you around, are you at that point now where you have to kind of declare a major? And if so, how have you kind of approached that specific decision?
Okay, yeah. So I'm a psychology major, and I knew since applying for colleges that that's the major that I wanted to be in. In terms of the school and the program, I was really drawn to the University of Delaware because it has a lot of different research assistant opportunities and a lot of job offers after the fact. And and I'm also a Spanish minor and an HDFS minor, which is Human Development and Family Services.
Okay.
And so post-graduation, I want to get into social work, and the HDFS minor, it really centers around that. So that was one of the main reasons that I chose the major that I did and the minor that I did at the school that I am at.
Awesome, awesome. No, great answer. Appreciate that. And so, just want to for each of you, have you been happy with your decision thus far? Why don't we go in reverse order? Sydney, how about you? Overall, have you enjoyed your experience at University of Delaware?
I definitely have enjoyed my experience. Along with academics, I have joined various organizations. I'm a part of a dance team. I joined the NAACP at my school, and I'm also a part of the Native American Student Alliance. So I definitely think that I have benefited from my experience at my school.
Wow, you sound like you might be a little busy. Has it been tough to juggle all that in classes?
A little bit. I've definitely had to prioritize and kind of take breaks from this and that, but it has definitely been fulfilling.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. DeAnthony, what about you? Have you enjoyed Florida AMU, FAMU thus far?
Yes, I love it. I'm in love with the culture and the beauty of the school. It just seems like every time I'm there, or even the littlest thing can happen, I just say I love my school, and I'm glad that I chose it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And Brother David Stowe, how about you in Anne Arundel County Community College? Have you enjoyed it thus far?
Yeah, I'd say it's been pretty enjoyable so far. It's helped me with just like with COVID and everything. I wish I had a bit more connect with the school,
Yeah.
but as of right now, I think that it's definitely helped me feel like I've had purpose, because like in these last like few months or so, like after I graduated high school and I was just going through the motions with every single day felt the same. It
Yeah.
definitely helped me like realize that I'm doing something and my life is actually going to go somewhere eventually. So yeah, that definitely felt good.
Awesome. Awesome. And since you also raised COVID in some of your answers, I want to kind of transition to that topic, since it's obviously a huge part of our reality and our world right now. And specifically want to start off with DeAnthony and David on this question. Did COVID affect in any way your decision of which school to go to? Since you guys are both freshmen now, I thought I'd start off with you two.
I think it was a factor because I had always been considering going to Anne Arundel Community first.
Okay.
But I think COVID definitely solidified that decision because of the cost of everything.
Okay.
And because it's like proximity, because assuming that COVID ends in a sense and anytime soon, the proximity to where I live currently would benefit me the most.
Awesome. Awesome. DeAnthony, what about you? Did it have any effect on your decision one way or the other?
Actually, it didn't. When I decided that Florida A&M was the place I wanted it to be, COVID wasn't a big issue as it is now, so I didn't take that into consideration.
Okay, cool. And just for all three of you, how has COVID just generally affected life on campus, whether it's online classes? Are you guys doing that mainly? Are you in person? Is it some form of a hybrid? How's it been with your actual academic courses? Sydney, why don't we start with you on that?
So since the start of COVID, we've been completely online, unless you have like labs or other classes that you have to be in person for. They are letting those students on campus, but otherwise they've recommended that you stay home and all of your classes be held online. And I think that we're still doing that until spring semester.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. David, what about you? Same thing, online mainly?
Yeah, it's been pretty much completely online. I think like Sydney, we're basically, unless you have to go to the school, you're going to be online until spring. So yeah.
Gotcha. And DeAnthony, how about you?
For me, it's been hybrid. So last semester I had 2 in-person classes and 3 online classes.
Okay. And so how has that affected not only your adjustment to college, particularly for you, DeAnthony, and you, David, but just generally college life from kind of a more online experience, since we all know a lot of what makes college fun is your ability to be around your peers, socialize, whatever the case may be. How has that affected you all, and your college peers for that matter? DeAnthony, let's start with you.
At first, I was a little bummed out about it because it took away the whole in-person activities thing. So like at my school, there's a thing like Set Friday where you get to network and meet with people. So at first, I wasn't a big fan of the whole online thing in COVID. But as the semester went on, I was able to meet people and make friends. And that allowed me to be around them because it was a smaller group. So I was actually able to interact with them. So I came to, it hasn't affected me that much since then.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Sydney, what about you on that question?
With like campus life, it is interesting. We use Zoom often. We try to do certain things like for example, my dance team, we have like dance classes using our IG Live. We will stretch on Zoom. We're currently participating in like a Secret Santa or mailing each other gifts just to kind of stay involved in each other's lives. So yeah, it's a lot of things like that.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. David, what about you? I know you mentioned you have some kind of Zoom groups that you participate in to help, but has it been kind of weird just not being able to be around folks?
Yeah, definitely. I can't say that I'm like gotten too close with pretty much anyone because like it's just really hard talking to people. And I think personally I'm an outlier here because I personally like the fact that COVID allowed me to start online because like when I was thinking about it, like college for me was going to be like this huge, like somewhat stressful transition because like I'm not used to being away from home and like I'm not used to like having to interact with like a bunch of new people, and like that was stressing me out a bit, like for the most part was the social part. So cutting that part out really helped me with like the transition, so I could like just mainly focus on schoolwork and getting things done and not having any distractions like that. And I think once it comes back, I'll be more ready to balance schoolwork and social life, because when you only have schoolwork, you're going to want social life. So yeah.
That's great. No, I'm glad you mentioned that transition piece. Wanted to explore that both with Sydney and DeAnthony as well. How was that for you just coming out of high school, particularly since you both are going to out of state colleges and universities? Was that just a tough transition generally, leaving home? DeAnthony, let's start with you and we'll go to Sydney next.
In the beginning, it was a tough transition. I would call home and speak with them because I would start to miss them. But as I met new people and was able to get involved on campus, I sort of distanced away, not completely, but I started to do things on my own and feel more comfortable away.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Sydney, what about you for that kind of leaving home transition?
Yeah, so going to Delaware and, you know, meeting new people, making new friends was definitely a little difficult, only because Delaware is a very intimate state and most of the people that are at the University of Delaware are from Delaware, so they all kind of know each other. I think that, you know, just with going to classes and talking to people from the same classes I am, with the same majors that I am, going to different organizations and just talking to people at their events, I think eventually just kind of gets you more comfortable and with meeting new people and, you know, learning about them.
Awesome. So be honest with me. Did y'all miss those home cooked meals?
Oh, definitely.
DeAnthony, what about you? They got good food down there?
Yes, I miss the home cooked meals because sometimes they tend to serve the same thing. So that was one thing that I missed. But on Wednesdays and Fridays, there were fried chicken Wednesdays and fish fry Fridays. So that was something that reminded me of home and I was happy about.
Okay, I'm jealous, man. You might see a visitor down there with you soon. Want to explore briefly too, just to kind of stay on this transition theme. What was it like academically for you all coming out of high school and going into freshman year in particular? Did you feel like your high schools had prepared you pretty well? Was it like a huge learning curve just to kind of get used to more college level courses? What was that transition like? Why don't we start with David on this one?
Okay, so in high school, I was mainly like an honor student. So like the work level, like the level of challenge or difficulty of the work was like fine, but I was not prepared for the workload at all. When I got to college, there was so much work. Like from the first day, I saw there were so many things due, and I said, "What? What is this? This is absolute nonsense." But as
I
time went
remember
on,
that.
I was able to grasp it and handle it a bit better.
Uh-huh.
But I think I think if I had gone into AP into high school, I would have been more prepared for it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it was it was a challenge at the start. I will not lie.
I hear you, man. I remember that feeling well myself. Sydney, what about you? How was the transition coming out of high school, going into freshman year there?
So yeah, just like David, I was also, you know, like an IB honors student. So the level of the work and the workload didn't really shock me, but there were times when I was like, what is this? How do you
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not one to ask for help. I'm just like, I can figure this out. And if I can't figure it out, then I'll ask for help.
Right,
But,
right.
so yeah, so asking, getting accustomed to going to office hours and talking to my TA, seeking out a tutor was kind of foreign to me. So that is something that I had to get used to.
Gotcha, gotcha. And DeAnthony, how about you for the academic transition piece?
High school prepared me well. I was an honor student as well, and also took dual enrollment. So I feel like that had an effect on how I transitioned to college. But there were obviously some times where the workload was really heavy because in dual enrollment, I only had 2 classes a semester. So when I got to college, there was a lot more work and the deadlines were always stacked on each other from different classes. So
Yep.
I'd say I'm in the middle.
Gotcha, gotcha. Appreciate that. Sydney, you mentioned, you know, you kind of know when to ultimately get help when you can't figure it out yourself and going to TAs or professors. Talk to us a little bit about how that works. I know, particularly for some students, it might be intimidating to meet with their professors or TAs for that matter. Do you have advice on how to overcome that initial fear sometimes or intimidation? What would be your suggestions on that?
Yeah, so I would say if you know, going to your professor can sometimes seem intimidating. So, you know, maybe seek out a tutor that's within the same grade or same age range as you are. The TA is also there and they are there to help as well. But you know, creating relationships with your professor is like extremely important. They are there to help. You know, they are getting paid by your tuition dollars. That is what they're there to do. You know, you should definitely take advantage of that, and creating relationships with your professor will ultimately help you throughout the rest of your college career as well.
Awesome, thank you. David and DeAnthony, do you feel like your respective schools also have those support systems, and have you been able to use them thus far? DeAnthony, we can start with you and go to David next.
Yes, speaking on the support system, there's a class, there's a class for freshmen to transition from high school to college that's required to take. So that was a part of the support system. And with that, they give you a peer mentor, which is like a student who is like a junior or senior. So they give you a peer mentor to help you with transitioning as well, and also a peer counselor as well.
Cool.
So the support system was there. And just going off what Sydney said about speaking with your teachers, your professors, at first I was a little intimidated based off because of what I was told from other students and what I've heard. But as long as you meet with your teachers and attend office hours to get to know them, they're actually flexible and are willing to help you.
That's awesome. Thank you, DeAnthony. David, how about you and your school?
Yeah, so our teachers always always make sure that you know that there's tutoring hours available whenever you need help with an assignment or anything. And one of my particular teacher, when I was struggling with a specific class at the very start of the semester, they were very proactive with helping me, which was something that I thought was really foreign in college. But I guess there's going to be like some outliers in that sense.
Yep.
But as far as my other classes and my other teachers, I've always felt that I could approach them whenever I needed help or I needed some sort of guidance or assistance. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Are any of you guys currently doing any internships while in college? DeAnthony, David, Sydney, you can raise your hand. Okay, gotcha. Sydney, since you're a junior, just curious, since you're probably kind of close to getting out ultimately, have you already started to think about ways to kind of explore your future career? And if so, how have you done that kind of within the college environment itself?
Yeah, so as I previously mentioned, the program at psychology program at my school, they offer a lot of research assistant opportunities.
Cool.
So that's one way to kind of, just get used to what your career is going to start to look like. Me personally, I want to go into social work after after undergrad. So that's what my minor is for, and I can use my minor to, kind of reach out to different internships, different opportunities, try and get hours at, I don't know, say a hospital that specializes with children. So yeah, things of that nature, just to kind of get used to what my life will look like post-grad.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. So here's a question for all of you. If you had to give advice to folks coming up from behind you about applying to schools and what they should be considering during that process, what type of advice do you think you would give to those students? David, why don't we start with you?
Advice. Okay, so I think I would tell them first to definitely look around and explore their options and not just settle for the first school that accepts them, because you should definitely be looking for what school is going to be looking out for your interests personally. And also, I mentioned this earlier, but the cost is a very big factor. And if you know that your parents or you are going to be struggling to make those payments at that school, I think that you should definitely consider what you're doing. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Great advice, by the way. DeAnthony, how about you?
I would first start by saying don't wait. When I started applying to schools, I was a little behind, so I had to work harder to make up for the time I missed. So don't wait. Also, if possible, I would suggest taking visits to the schools you were accepted to, because not only is the academic part a big focus, but also the atmosphere environment. You don't want to be at a school where you don't feel comfortable or you don't like, because then there will be no purpose of you being there. You wouldn't have fun. You would feel like you would want to stop and drop out. So I would also advise that. And just look into what the schools have to offer related to your major, if you are aware of what your major is. Yeah.
Awesome. Another great piece of advice, or pieces of advice, I should say. And finally, Sydney, what about you on that particular question?
Yeah, I have to agree with DeAnthony of visiting the campus, because campus life is a huge part of college. And also, if you're set on, the college that you want to go to, but you're not sure what you want to do, not to be afraid to go in undecided, because you can, explore your options. You're getting your fundamentals, and you can also, take different routes, look at different interests, see something might surprise you. You might think about being a veterinarian, and then boom, you're a civil engineer. So yeah, definitely going undecided, because you might find something that you didn't know you were interested in at first.
Awesome. Thank you for that great piece of advice too. And the final question before we open it up to others who might have questions, and it's kind of similar to the one I just asked, but if you could give a piece of advice to folks coming up behind you about college life and what they should know about college life, what would that be? DeAnthony, why don't we start with you on that one?
A piece of advice is to plan accordingly and make sure you have your priorities straight. Of course, you want to have fun, party, but it shouldn't come before your education. I feel like you should have a plan of action. So if there's a point where you need to study or do homework, don't put your social activities before it. And with a lot of these parties and things, they're usually going for a good period of time. And I know people who have done homework and got their work done before they went out.
Okay.
So I would just say, just make sure you have everything straight and what you are supposed to focus on.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, DeAnthony. Appreciate that. Sydney, what about you? Advice about college life itself?
For college life, I would say to definitely branch out and, join an organization, go to a few different events, maybe, become an RA. You definitely, college, yes, you are getting an education and that is why you're there and that is very important. But you also want to take advantage of all of the resources that your college has, you don't want to spend 4 years with your head in a note, with your nose in a book, because that there's just so much more that you can get from college than in education.
Awesome. Thank you, Sydney. David, how about you to round us out on that question?
I think the best piece of advice I can offer to you right now is to know who you are, know yourself. And if you think that a schedule would work for you, then do it for a schedule. But if like me personally, I could never do a schedule. Schedules don't work for me. Mm-hmm. Trying to force myself into something like that just has never worked, and I don't think ever will. So simply knowing the best routes to approach whatever you're going to do is definitely the best piece of advice I can offer.
Awesome. Awesome. Way to round it out. Awesome advice. Before we open it up to anyone else who might have questions for you guys, just want to take a note of personal privilege to let you guys know how proud we are of you. You guys have represented yourself extremely well. The insights, the perspectives, the advice you guys have provided during this session, they've all been awesome. We know we're in good hands with you guys as our future. I know you guys will probably be running this program in a couple of years, the way you've been dropping knowledge today. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate your time this morning, this afternoon, and we're grateful to you. Brother Derek, I don't know if we want to open it up for general questions from others.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and open it up for questions. Leslie posed a question in the chat, and this question was for Sydney. And Sydney, the question is, do you think there was a decline in the quality of your classes now that they are online, or has the quality remained the same, relatively remained the same with COVID?
So the quality of my classes, I think that they have, the quality has decreased actually with COVID, because I think a lot of professors, for me, they just, send me PowerPoints and then just say, take notes, this is the exam date, if you have questions, come to me. And I don't really get a lot of learning or anything out of that. So yeah, I think that with COVID, the quality of the teaching has gone down a little bit, yeah.
Another question in the chat. Sister Cecilia asked Sydney, let me know, I guess this is for you if you want an internship. So you can read that in the chat from Sister Cecilia. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. I always tend to, but I've heard anecdotally that with HBCUs, sometimes like the registration process can be difficult under normal circumstances. So I guess for DeAnthony, how or what's been your experience once COVID hit as well, like just transitioning to that online platform? And how has your HBCU kind of managed, and have they risen to the occasion essentially?
So when it comes to registering for classes, I would say they have risen to the occasion. They offer workshops and appointments where you can meet with your advisor to discuss what classes you need to take. So I would say they have risen to the occasion with everything going on, and that they had a plan from the beginning.
If I could just piggyback on what DeAnthony said, going into him, once he selected FAMU as the school of choice, with COVID and everything, the school, I think, did a great job at providing information to parents. They had, several town hall meetings in terms of, making sure, even though we weren't able to go to the actual physical orientations, they had online orientations via town hall meetings that allowed you to go and get information, on the school. They were really, had real in-depth information about pretty much about everything. And then even after he got on campus and school began, they sent out information for parents that, we get a weekly newsletter in terms of what's going on campus, how they're handling the COVID situation, reminders about financial aid and so on and so forth. So I think they've done a great job at that. And I don't know if it would have been the same had we not, been dealing with COVID. Of course, it's, the new norm, everything is about video chats and emails and everything nowadays versus, having to go, down to the school and getting information and try to talk to somebody face to face. So I think, they've actually done a great job with that.
Awesome.
Anyone else have any other questions? No other questions. So I just want to say, and pretty much echo what everyone else has said. Very proud of the three of you, and I appreciate you guys, accepting our invitation to participate in this event. A lot of great information was shared, not only from you all and our presenters, but I just like the whole interaction in general. Brother Rob, I appreciate you for moderating, handled it very well. And I thank you all for attending. This session has been recorded and it will be available for people to view on our YouTube channel. So if you know of someone who had a desire to attend, but was not able to do that, we will upload this information on the Turner YouTube channel, Turner Memorial AME Church. So please definitely go out and check it out. If anyone has any questions, you can shoot us questions to turner-ame.org and just click on the scholarship link. You can email us directly. Also, our presenters have shared their information in the chat. So if you had any questions for them, please don't hesitate to reach out to them. And again, on behalf of the scholarship ministry, our pastor, the Reverend Dr. D.K. Kearney, and everyone at Turner Memorial AME Church, I just want to thank everyone for the great efforts and your support in this event, and just continue to look forward to great things from our students and this ministry. So thank you all very much, and you all have a great rest of the day, and appreciate you. Thank you.